Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk about life. Our guests will share their life story. We want you to success in life and business. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk about life. We're going to speak on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are going to witness. Business with a servant's heart. With hosts Steve Mann and Ray. Inspiration, education talks. Listen to the podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Mann. I'm really fired up for you to join us today. I've spent about 10 minutes with the guest. Just met him today, but I fell in love with this guy. He gets it about a servant's heart, giving, bringing value, taking care of people, doing as much as you can, because that's what we dedicated this podcast to, learning how to have that servant's heart, not only in business, but in your personal life, because they cross over all the time. And we're bringing guests on. They're going to motivate you, inspire you, and educate you. And this guest today is going to do this so much for you. So get your pad and paper out. I want to thank my sponsor, Pantheon. Join a community of high-income business leaders and thought leaders who are building this platform to help impact and change the world. And that's what you get to do as a servant's heart. For more information on Pantheon, just reach out to me. And here's your homework today, audience. Yeah, I give homework on my podcast. I want you to think about how you can serve yourself and others today and take action and do that. I've had people reach out and go, it's been a month, I didn't do it. Well, they did that day because I told them to, but don't wait. Start serving. It could be $1 million to your church, or it'd be just calling your best friend saying, I'm thinking about you. That's service. And it goes on many different levels. With that being said, let's bring our wonderful guest on today. Steve, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Great name, too, by the way. I forgot to tell you that before the show.
I noticed that. It is.
What's interesting, listening to you before the show and now, there's serial entrepreneurs around. I had a great guest yesterday, serial entrepreneur, but you call yourself a global entrepreneur. Explain what that is.
Well, I grew up on a little farm, potato farm in Idaho. And I learned really quickly all kind of values you learn on a farm, but mostly I learned I wanted off that farm. And I read, and I had visions and wanted to see the world. And fortunately, I've been able to do that. I've lived in or been to some 56 countries. We spent 6 years living in Africa. And I have viewed my life kind of as, well, you got to earn enough money to do something, and then what are you going to do? And so I was able to turn my experience and my connections that I had made around the world into combating AIDS in Southern Africa. And I think all of us need to find a way. We all have something that we need to find a way to give that to others. You don't have to go to Africa. You can do anything you want. But we all can find a way to make a difference. And I've been really fortunate to do that. So a serial entrepreneur, well, I've started or co-started 4 companies and 4 humanitarian organizations. And in fact, for me, I'm more of a starter and get it going and then go to something else. I am not a good manager. I don't like the day-to-day. I'd rather start something new. And so that's kind of how I became a serial entrepreneur.
Well, it's fantastic, Steve. You found what your calling was. You found what you're good at. That's a great lesson for the audience to hear, because, don't jump into something you don't think you're comfortable or passionate about. Have somebody else do it. But I love what you're doing. What gets you up in the morning? What's the passion when you got up this morning? What drives you?
That has changed throughout life. I'm one who, when I'm doing something, I'm passionately devoted to whatever that is, almost to the exclusion of other things, including sometimes my family, which has not been great. But it's just who I am to start a project, whether that's a company or a foundation and put everything I have into it. Most recently, it has been writing and getting this book edited and ready to go and getting it published and looking to promote it. And so I wake up, well, I usually wake up about 3 or 4 in the morning with ideas and write them down. I keep a yellow pad by my desk. I write them down, or I send emails to myself. And and usually I'm up by 6 anyway, and I kind of force myself to do some basic things like breathing exercises and meditation and exercise and stretches. And then I get back to writing. What are the notes I write down during the week? And that's what I did this morning.
Well, it's perfect because, as I said at the beginning of the show, you got to serve yourself first. And that's what the exercise, the meditation,
Yeah.
You're a reader probably, and all these things allow you to be a better servant heart and be able to serve others. It's fantastic. And great tip, audience. I just wrote that down. Have your phone by you and just pick up the phone, hit your email and go, your email, and that's probably what you do. I don't know if you talk or type, it doesn't matter, but that's a great idea. So when you get to your office, it's sitting right there for you to work with. See, that's why I love hosting podcasts. I learned so much.
New ideas.
So I want to dive into the book, but one thing, you're a mentor, and you talked about before the show in the green room about mentorship. What is your definition of a successful mentor?
A successful mentor, I think, is one who is able to encourage and teach without necessarily looking like or sounding like a teacher, and certainly not sounding like a lecturer. I think it's one who can draw from their own experiences. I think it's one who can ask a lot of questions and help that person draw out from themselves what the answer is or what they need to be doing.
That's a great definition. And you've done a lot of mentorship.
I'm not smart enough to know the answers to everything. But what I think I am pretty good about is helping people draw it out of themselves.
That's something I had to learn, and I'm glad you said that. Our audience, you need to learn that. You're not going to know everything, and that's okay. Don't need to be the smartest guy in the room. Probably don't want to be, and that's where you're going to learn the most. Let's jump into the book. What's the title of the book, the mission of the book, and what you want to help with people?
The book is called Stories That Shape Us, and the subtitle is a guide to helping people pass on wisdom, knowledge, and love to the next generation. And as you can tell, I'm quite passionate about it. I started at just writing something for my own grandkids. Then I thought, they're not interested where I was or what I did or who I met. They don't care about that. And when I wrote those, that didn't tell them anything about what I believe, what's important to me. So I identified traits and principles and beliefs that are important to me. They're not a list of all the best traits in the world. They're the ones that are important to me. And then I started illustrating those with stories from my own life. And kids love stories. They don't want to lecture, but they love a story. If I got time for just a quick story.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, my youngest son and my mentor now is African American. And when he was a kid, and sometimes even now, he'd be followed home by the police because of his skin color. And I was explaining this to my 7-year-old son. And he looked at me and he said, "Grandpa, that's stupid. Why would anybody do that?" Well, how do you explain prejudice and discrimination to a 7-year-old? But he didn't want to let it go. And he brought it up the next morning with his parents, and it led to a long discussion. So I use stories because you can't sit down with a 7-year-old and say, "I'm going to give you a lecture on discrimination or prejudice."
No.
But if you're telling a story that he or she can relate to, then they start asking the questions, and it leads to a discussion that they want to have. And so the book is trying to teach people how to do that. It tries to help people identify their own beliefs and traits that are important to them, and then shows them how they can illustrate that using experiences from their own life. And my hope is that people will do that. They'll get involved with their grandchildren. They will have something for great-great-grandchildren they don't even know. and that in the process, they'll feel motivated to do something on their own, not just their own story, but take action on whatever's important to them.
I love stories.
So that's what the book's
love it.
about.
Yeah, and it's real quick stories. If you got a company out there, you're an entrepreneur, you have a story. We can't tell you what it is, but develop a story somehow, some way. You talked about before the show workbook. I love that because you're teaching people how to do these stories, not just like, hey, find the story, but you go deeper. Talk about that.
Well, when I first started, it was just writing. And I said, that's not going to really get people thinking what they want to do. So after each story, I have what I just called questions to reflect on. What did you learn from that? What did that mean to you? What are your stories? And after each trait or belief, I have a list of things that they could look at if they wanted to explore that further. They can do that by themselves, or they can do that with their grandchildren or with their spouse if they want to. But I just decided nobody really wants to know that much about me, but they do want to involve themselves in discussions. They do want to learn from other people. Right now we're in a culture that we don't talk to our own family. We don't talk to our neighbors about anything that's important. We talk about weather and sports and food and what's on TV, but we don't want to talk about any political issues or any environmental or issues of the day because we're afraid. And what a loss that is. I have this little group of, we call them empty nesters, and they're just in my neighborhood. And, as I got talking to them, they're nuclear physicists, they're microbiologists, they've lived all over the world. And we get together once a week just to have somebody come in and talk to us or listen to something. And I said, what would you think if maybe we took, this is last summer when we were in the middle of politics, what would you think if we took one of these political issues and talked about it? No way. Don't want to do that. We might offend somebody. And I think that's typical of how we approach friends and neighbors, and how we approach our own family. And yet, if you think about it, aren't those the people we would really like to learn from? Aren't those the people we would like to know what they believe and why? And I think it's critical, not just for us as people, but for us as a society to learn how to talk again.
Yeah, communication, because we're so afraid. Social media has really destroyed this. I've seen somebody put something up and people attack them. They don't even know them. They just know from social media. And I won't get deep into that. And I love that because me and you, Steve, we can agree to disagree. I love that phrase. You have your thoughts, I have mine. That's okay. We could still be friends or family member, whatever. Doesn't matter, right?
Along the way, I created a bonus chapter that is specifically how to talk to your friends and neighbors about controversial issues. And I go through a lot of things in that, but when I get to things that you could do, it says, don't start a discussion by trying to convert. Start a discussion by trying to learn. And if you set that as a basic ground rule, you can talk about anything. And if you follow it. But we're so busy trying to come up with our rebuttal or make our case that we don't listen, and they don't listen to us.
Yeah. Well, that's a good reason to buy the book. You just sold me, because that is that's what you just described. This bonus chapter is happening every day.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not every day for me or you, but it happens a number of times during the week because we're always making decisions in our life. Do we go to this restaurant or this restaurant? We're not going to go there because it's terrible, instead of like, well, why is it not so good? Well, here's why. Well, okay. I love it. Audience, well, where can I get the book? Now that we walked into this, where can I get the book? I know it's available in a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, it'll be on Amazon in a couple of weeks. We created a website that actually the bonus chapter will be on the website. And the website is just steve-mann.com. Easy to remember. And I think the book's supposed to be there now, but it should be at least in 2 weeks available on Amazon in, paperback or ebook or even audiobook.
Yeah, people can, audience, just keep an eye out for it. I will be. And sometimes Amazon lets you order early before it's able to ship, and it might be there. So check it out. Reach out to me if you want more information, because storytelling is such a game changer. It's made my podcast. Every guest like you has told me stories, told my audience stories. That's part of the reason the podcast is successful. I have this question because I talk to people, I mentor business entrepreneurs especially, and I talk about storytelling. What's your story? They're like, what's the ROI? I mean, yeah, I can tell you a story, but it's going to make me money. They shouldn't focus on that. But what's your answer to that with storytelling?
I had a guy about my age tell me a story just a couple of weeks ago. And he had grown up in the 50s in Las Vegas, when Las Vegas was one of the most segregated communities in the country. And he's white, lived in the white area, but when he was about 16, his father sent him over to work for his uncle in the black part of town in a linen place that washed and cleaned linens for the hotels. And he was terrified. And he talked about the evolution he went through, learning to understand the people he was working with. And he's a great storyteller anywhere. And when he finished, I said, that is terrific. Have you written that down anywhere? He said, oh, no, I haven't. I said, well, why don't you write that down? I said, well, why should I? I said, wouldn't you like your grandchildren to hear that story? Or maybe there's a great-great-grandchild who you'll never meet, who could listen to that or hear that and say, I never thought of it like that. And that's not just something I read about in a book, but that's my great-great-grandfather who did that. That was his experience. I can relate to that. And he goes, man, maybe I will. And I think that's most people, like you said, well, I don't have any stories. And often most people haven't really identified the traits and values that are important to them.
Yeah, and that's why you want to get the book, because stories are powerful. And I didn't even think about that. Writing this stuff down or recording it for your legacy. That is so powerful to do that. Is it going to make you money? Maybe, maybe not. That doesn't matter. It's currency to the family. It's universal, or God's currency, I call it, that you're putting out there, that your family, like your great-great-grandkids, read it and go, God, Steve Mann said that. My grandfather was awesome.
I don't know if anybody will buy the book. I hope they do. But yeah. Even if they don't, I now have made a way so my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great can go through the book. It's kind of fun to go through and say, that's my great-great-grandfather. That's what he believed. That's what was important to him. If it was that important to him, maybe I ought to try to understand it a little better.
Well,
that's success.
Yeah, that's absolutely. You've got one book sold. I'm going to go on after the show and I'm going to buy a book. So that's one. But I love what you're saying there, because that's why I'm going to write my book. It's the legacy. Do I sell 100? I really don't care. If somebody reads it and we impact them, like I started the show, you're going to impact people. You're impacting me. So I really appreciate that. This last component, part to mentoring, part to storytelling, is leadership. What's your definition of a servant leader?
I think some people see themselves, particularly in business, is the business or whatever it is, that's their ego. And what's important to them is they've got to look good. And they have to be perfect in the decisions they make. And until they learn that nobody's that perfect, and you have to work together with others, and you get better solutions if you work together with others, they're not going to succeed for very long. And so I think, the kind of giving leader is one who understands people, who sees this as not just a bottom line issue, who sees this as I can use my talents and skills to help other people do better, think better of themselves. And that's what a leader should be.
I love that. Yeah, this is not a solo journey of life and business. It's got to be a journey. Community. It sounds like community is a big part of your life.
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, I think everybody wants to make a difference. whether it's just for themselves or for their family or for their community or for the country. Everybody wants to, but sometimes we get that desire beat out of us by situations or the economy or things we believe that we shouldn't from people. And I think we all need to find a way to get that back. And it always starts with one little step, just do something. And that lends us on to becoming leaders of ourselves, if not everybody else.
Oh man, you got me speechless. That doesn't happen for me. It's so good. And that brings up one. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I can't. I had a situation some 50 years ago. I had kind of been in the March for Freedom from the Boise train station to the Capitol, and it was a dark night, starting to rain, and I was supposed to give a speech, and so I did. But I didn't say, look, you've all got to go start a foundation or give money to this or go write your congressman. I said, if all you could do, any of us we could do is next time you see a person of color or a different religion, instead of turning away and hiding, walk over and say hi. If we could all just do that, everything else would fall in place. I really believe that. And I think it's simple things that lead to the bigger things.
Yeah. Yeah. As I told you before the show, I read the Daily Stoic, and we just talked about yesterday, take small steps. Those are most powerful steps. Don't take that large. Small steps lead to great outcomes.
No matter how small, take it.
Take action, right? You're saying take action. Last question as we get to the end here. You have mentors. I have mentors. How important is having a mentor to be successful?
For me, it's been everything. I have two teachers from graduate school who I actually write a little bit about in the book. Well, one of them was probably the worst stand-up teacher I've ever had, but he would always come in and talk to us. Think of a graduate school teacher who would spend an hour with every student every semester talking to them. And he gave me more thoughts and ideas that changed my life then and now. And a different graduate school teacher just like that. It was a class on ethics, and we would spend a week reading about all the bad things about environmentalists and then all the good things, and then we would debate it back and forth. Then we'd take the next issue. And again, I went in after, and he said, well, how'd you like the class? I said, well, I liked it, but I really kind of didn't like it either. And he said, well, why? I said, because I love being passionately devoted to a cause. And when I understand both sides, it's harder to do that. And he kind of laughed and he said, Steve, that's the role of the educated man, to keep the sides from killing each other while you help them try to work solutions. That has stuck with me for the last 60 years now. And, he's passed on now, but I can never be enough thankful for that piece of wisdom.
Well, that's a powerful outcome. That is perfect reason why you should have a mentor.
Yeah.
How you find and all that, we're not going to get into that. You just have your ears open. Just listen, have yours. And maybe Steve Mann's your mentor. We'll get his contact information in a minute. He'd love to do that. Let's end with a fun question. I always like to end with this great question. So there's a restaurant. I've reserved the table for you, Steve. Table for 4. You're going to sit in one of the chairs. You have 3 empty chairs. Who is Steve going to invite, whether dead or alive? And what food are you going to order for the table?
Well, that's an interesting question. I haven't thought of that. There's so many people I would like to have a chance to talk with. I guess, I don't know why he would do this with me, but one would be Jesus Christ. I have always admired his teachings of forgiveness and mercy and caring and service and equality. And it would be fascinating to talk to him. I would love to have Thomas Jefferson there. Jefferson had most interesting life of its own, but he was brilliant. And you know, what led you to thinking like this? What happened to get you to see that, to write down, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. So Jefferson would be one. I think another one would be Mahatma Gandhi. Eric Erickson, psychologist, wrote a book once on Gandhi's truth. And the book was about how Gandhi took his biggest weaknesses and turned them into the power to make a difference, and that we should too. But can you imagine those three people around the table? I have no idea where the discussion would go.
I have to bring a
but it
fifth
would
chair
be
for me.
fascinating.
Oh my God, I'd have to be at that table. That's why I love asking that question. It gets my mind going too.
Well, we'll pull up another chair.
I love it. And what kind of food?
That's a really good question. What kind of food? I think it would be something that we could eat communally. I love Indian food, and I've spent a lot of time in places where they have that. But what I like it, and a lot of cultures do that, you get a big plate of stuff, and you take it and eat it, and you share it. It's not, here's my thing, don't touch it. But with these people around this table, I'd like to really be sharing.
Well, and definitely Jesus, there have to be bread and fish and wine, but we won't go into that. Hey, Steve, you are an absolute blessing. What you're doing, what this book's going to do when it comes out, I thank you so much for taking the time, for being on this podcast, because you're just incredible. You care and you have that servant's heart. I know people listening are going, I got to reach out to Steve. How can they find you?
Well, probably the easiest way right now, till everything's done, is to go to our website at Steve, STEVE-Mann, MANN.com. And we're putting on podcasts that we have done as we get them back. We're putting on little video clips that we've made. We'll put on the bonus chapter. It'll probably be there in a couple of weeks. We'll put on how they can order the book, and we'll put on contact if they're looking for somebody to talk or to give a workshop or something like that.
Beautiful. There's a contact page. So you can reach out. And if you can't find it, or reach out to me as the host, and I'll get you connected with Steve. I'd be honored to do that. Steve, thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Audience.
Hey, thank you. This has been great fun.
It has. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And here's why I say this. I look at these podcasts quite a bit different than a lot of people. What we just had today is learn how to storytell, to grow your business, to grow your life. And you listen to it and go, my friend needs to listen to this. Share the link. When you subscribe, it gets the link sent to you, and share it with them. You just send them a gift. And they go and listen and reach out to Steve or read his book, and you've impacted their life. I can't think of a better way to serve people. Use Pie. It doesn't have to be my podcast. You see Steve on another podcast, whatever. Just take those links, share them as gifts, as servant. Be servant with these opportunities. It's not going to be for everybody, but I know everybody emails me. Not everybody. A lot of people go, yeah, I just listened to this podcast. I shared it with somebody. Do that. Share these, subscribe, and enjoy. With that being said, me and Steve want to thank you all so much for watching or listening to this podcast. We'll see you all in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone.